and I'm going to record, and we're just going to launch into it here with everybody here. Happy week of Mother's Day, right? And I hope everyone who appropriately celebrated. And it, and of course, this is an incredibly busy week as we get into it. And it's an incredibly busy month, as you can see from what the May. That's going to be a theme here, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. How many of you all know about May and have heard about it? Curious. Any comments?
Mm-hmm.
I have.
Yeah, because it's a thing now, right? You know, I think it started in the UK, and it's very much a thing across the United States now. And we're going to hear a lot more about it next month when Katie Buckley from the Washington Department of Agriculture's Pollinator Task Force will speak to us here. So
Cool.
so it's going to be a cool thing.
Magic.
Dar, you have your hand up. Comment?
Yes, I have May at my house because my husband is gone until the middle of June. And I'm not going to drag out the lawnmower.
I have many months of no mo.
Many months of May, so it's not a big thing.
Right.
Well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it soon here. But welcome everybody here to today on May 10th here. We have a lot to talk about. I'm gonna scream through all the normal stuff that we do in terms of the May to-dos. We've got a lot of announcements, and of course, the big feature for today is to talk about the bylaws. This is this will be the first reading of a proposed new set of bylaws, revised bylaws for the foundation. And PJ and the team will talk more about that when we get to it. Anyway, I see this is this is May, and happy birthday to the very few people that have May birthdays. Rick, I see you're on. Happy birthday to you. So coming up next week.
Thank you.
Chris.
It's an incredible, you can see just from the calendar in terms of all the stuff going on here, it's an incredibly busy month, and it kicked off with the very successful plant sale last Saturday, as well as training. We have 2 trainings this session, this month. And of course, a show setup this week and the show itself this week. So, there's a lot going on, no question. So it's just, we'll talk more about details and announcements as we get into it. Okay, so a quick heads up in terms of the foundation, in terms of the reminder about who we are, and we'll revisit this thought as we start talking about the bylaws. So it's interesting to put this in context now, because we talk about this often so that we remind ourselves about who we are relative to our Master Gardener membership and our Master Gardener engagement. These comments here about educating and informing and fundraising and coming together, we're going to be talking about our bylaws that codify these points, and this will become the big theme for today's meeting. Reminder about who our elected board is, of course. PJ is president, Sabina is a president-elect, and everybody else who's working to support the entire team here. And we may be a small foundation relative to overall size, but I tell you, there's a lot of volunteerism within our group, and that is incredibly appreciated, incredibly exciting to note. Tony, Alina, and Brenda, of course, help us connect with WSU and the program officially. And of course, John, Margie, Terry, and Cindy lead the major committees that are so important to the health of the foundation and the completion of our mission. So May to-dos, and this is such an incredibly hectic time in terms of getting out and actually planting and actually making things happen. It's interesting how OSU recognizes, they're looking for 70-degree soil, right, in order to get the tomatoes and things out. Yeah, and it's it's going to be so everybody's dreaming about if everybody had 70-degree soils here. I know that for the Owako demo garden, I know that Bev is planning a planting party this Wednesday. So it's 55 degrees down there now. So we'll see how it goes. Soil temperatures, reminder that WSU on the WSU weather.wsu.edu, they've got a whole series, right, of statewide stations that monitor precipitation, temperature, and soil temperature. And so we've still got a ways to go before we're anywhere close to it, to 70. But again, if you don't have a soil temperature gauge, you can at least use this as a proxy. Hey, a lot of cleanup, of course, and that's still is still going on. There's a lot of winter cleanup and a lot of it, and a lot of pruning that you can still make happen here. Of course, given every spring, it's just, you got some plants are still late in blossoming. Some plants have already completed their blossoms. So it's a matter of staying attention and everything. Dahlias, gladioli, begonias, chrysanthemums, vegetables, dates vary locally is what OSU is saying. And the Oregon coast is in Western Oregon. These are transplanting tomatoes. So they're encouraging us, right? If you have, if you indeed can meet your soil conditions here, to get out and put the seeds in. So, and then pest monitoring, of course, just the typical, the typical set of monitoring that we're all familiar with here in terms of starting to see, your aphids, spittlebugs. I've not seen any spittlebugs yet this season here, but I guess this is just the whole point about, getting in tune with looking and monitoring for pests that are going to be all over the little veggies that once we get them planted. And then, of course, reminder about frosting. I know there was some, we can still have frost later into the May. And did I not understand? Did I hear correctly that there was actually a frost warning for good parts of our area just this past week?
Yes. And for Portland, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an amazing, ups and downs year, right? In terms of frost damage this late. But on the other hand, going at this at what you see from the map here, it's not uncommon, right, that we would be having such late frost risk for us. And then, of course, as I mentioned right at the beginning, right, this is No Mow May, and it as we were talking earlier, it's a convenient excuse for those of us that don't want to get the mower out. So because we can just tell our neighbors saying, hey, this is what we do. This is just how we manage things here. So we're very comfortable. And of course, the reason is very straightforward, right? Is that lawns are the least productive habitat for any kind of insect. And the reason is, of course, we don't let them grow. We don't let our grasses grow until they to allow them to flower. And I discovered this a few years ago in terms of just letting the lawn go and finding that the whole lawn became alive with tiny little pollinators, but thousands and thousands of pollinators of just a tiny little sort that loved the grasses and the tiny little flowers that the grasses would produce. So so this is a thing, No Mow May. You can easily Google it, and you'll find all kinds of references to programs and celebrations and so forth. And of course, as we all know, the need for pollinators and the importance of pollinators is beyond description. Any other comments on No Mow May and maybe what you've heard or learned or thought about it? We'll hear more about it next month, as I mentioned, from Katie Buckley from the Washington Department of Ag. Okay, lots of announcements coming into this month here, and I want to begin here with the scholarship announcement. Anyone here from the scholarship committee that can talk to us about applications that we've received? Anyone?
Karen, do you want to talk about that? This is PJ.
Oh, she's on
I
mute.
had trouble unmuting. I'm sorry.
That's
This is
okay.
Karen. We have 2 applications. We haven't all looked at them yet. So not sure whether either one of them will qualify, but we did get 2, which was really nice. I think they're both from Hoquiam High School, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I did talk to the counselor there the week before, and I said, we hadn't gotten any yet. And so she said she was going to light a fire under her kids. So apparently she did.
I look forward to the review. And by the way, just a big thank you to the folks on the committee, right? It's a big deal, you know, not just the number of scholarships we receive and whether we award the scholarships and so forth, but getting the word out, right? And getting the word out to the schools, getting the words out to the counselors about who we are and how we care about this and how we definitely want to support financially, right? You know, students interested in pursuing these kind of careers.
Absolutely.
So kudos to the team.
Thank you.
So on training, of course, we are well into it. And in fact, it looks like we're, you know, for the calendar, we're halfway through the training calendars here. So a big shout out to everybody that's been leading and participating and helping and coaching. Any comments? Cindy, Jude, you know, Mike, I know you're on. Sharon Go Lightly, you just completed your class last week. Any comments in terms of how training's going and the look ahead?
Yes.
Sharon's on mute.
Sharon, let me just say something first and then we can go. Is that okay?
Sharon, Sharon Go Lightly, you want to say anything?
Well, anyways, let me just say that the things have gone well. And the evaluations from the trainees have
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sharon, that's for sure. And I can hear Cindy very faintly.
Yeah. The training, I think, went well. We had almost everybody there at the class. We had some super volunteers and mentors. Jude Armstrong helped me with the presentation. I think the plant clinic went well. And our thanks to all the veterans that came and went through 10 stations or 11 stations each and presented their plant problems. I think it's a good leg up for everybody that's going to do plant clinic at the Home and Garden Show. I think the trainees feel a lot more comfortable about encounters with potential clients and responding to plant disease questions. So the facility worked just fine, and the mentors and helpers that helped out were just super, and I couldn't say more things about all of them. So it's all appreciated, and I think we had a good training.
so.
Any other
Sharon,
comments on training? Congratulations on the success and so forth.
Yeah. So can you hear me now?
Say what?
So I'm trying to be heard. So you guys can just to follow up with some of the things you said, Sharon. So I want to know if you can hear me first.
Yes, barely.
Barely.
Okay, you're better.
All right. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Better, better.
Okay. All right.
Not really.
Well, John, what you okay.
Help is on the way, John.
Yeah, I can't help everything. So just what I just wanted to say was that we have had great evaluations from the trainees on all of the sessions. Sharon's is one of them, and so every one of the sessions that we've had so far, we've had good information back from the trainees that they're learning what they need to learn, and they're enjoying the class, and they're getting good information, and they're being stimulated and having a good learning experience. So, but I do want to make it clear that a lot of the reason for that is because of the mentors. They have been stellar. So the
Yes.
mentors are members of the class of 2020. So I just wanted that piece to be brought up so that you know who the mentors are this year, and what a great job they're doing under Garnet and Holly's tutelage. So anyway, enough for me on that.
Other comments about training? Shout out to the mentors there. Great,
I
Cindy.
would
Thank you.
like, I would like to ask Connie if she would make a comment about her experience on last Saturday, because we sometimes have a difficult time getting enough veterans to participate in that pretend clinic that we have. And Connie's done it very faithfully. And I think she was happy. Connie, what can you say about it to encourage other people, other vets to participate?
I had a great time on Saturday. It's the first time I was able to meet any of the trainees, so that was nice. They were very engaging and seemed to enjoy it. All of them said that they were scared to death about plant clinic, you know, so it was, they enjoyed the being able to experience what it was really like. So I think they came out with feeling a lot more at ease. But I thought it went really well. I enjoyed it a lot, and thank you for asking me to do it.
Thank you.
And I want to comment about how oh God, I can't think of the word. The trainees are really, as Connie said, engaged, interested. I think we've got a really good batch of trainees coming through, and you know, they're responding to the information given to them. They're interesting as well, and we just need to continue, all of us, mentoring them along and helping them to feel comfortable and part of the group.
Right? Yeah.
They got to pass the cookie test though this weekend.
Well, thank you for all that are making it happen. As we're all mentioning, you know, training and bringing on others is an incredibly important part of the program. And you know, partly because we are so small, right? So much of the training responsibility falls onto us as volunteers. And it's exciting to see how so many of us are collaborating and contributing to this it's a biannual event, right? You know, but it's so exciting to be able to do it in person too, by the way, after 2 years of COVID.
Really? Yeah, great. It's great.
Anyway, congratulations to all. Okay, reminder, just a real quick note here, by the way, you know, is that when we want to have announcements and we want to get word out, it's very important to have to give John and Katie adequate lead times. And of course, this is also another reminder to make sure that everybody who's listening here, that they need to ensure that they get their emails from Katie and or John, so that those individuals are whitelisted, so that the emails don't end up in spam. If folks, by the way, just a reminder, if they don't feel they're getting their e-news, right, you know, on a regular basis, definitely let John or Katie know, and we can make sure that we check our email list. And of course, if you do change your email, right, you know, or make an adjustment to your email correspondence, you know, make sure that we know so that we can get the notes updated. Heads up, by the way, that one of the discussions we had last month was how to think about going forward when we when we do plan to come together for face-to-face meetings. How can we efficiently handle that? We made a decision at the board meeting following last month's meeting. At our April board meeting, we purchased 2 Zoom capable microphone cameras. So these are, we purchased 2 OWL units that we intend to be using going forward to have meetings at which clusters of our master gardeners can gather in various locations. And we can, you know, have our meetings without having physically to all come together to a single location. So this is something that we'll be working through, and I'm presuming making plans for as we get into the next month. Any comments, Sharon, KB, relative to the owls that you've purchased and the
yeah, we actually used the 2 owls, or set up the 2 owls at our practice session. We had them too close together initially, so we had to go far into the buildings to make it work. But it is really cool to be able to see the whole group that is at a particular location. And the owl focuses in on the person who's speaking, or the last couple of people who've spoken, or if you're too far away from the camera, it looks at a group of people who are in that general area. But we're going to be using it for our class in, almost 2 weeks. And we're going to be at 3 different locations. So I think it'll work out really well. I'm excited to try it out.
We are entering the 21st century with our communications
Yeah.
technology.
I won't
And
say
we're
kicking
doing-
and screaming.
We're doing the right thing from a carbon footprint standpoint and from a savings of time. So this is kudos for all of us here. And by the way, the bottom line for all of this is that the objective here is to get more people engaged, right? So that the folks that are concerned about traveling or unable to travel or just, have, are challenged in that respect, either for time or economy or to, can participate, and we can still have the social interaction we need. Okay, this is the month in which we're making things happen. Oh, I'm sorry that we have a couple folks here that raise their hands. Jude, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I actually have a question for Sharon. With these 3 different sites, where are they going to be? I truly don't know and would like to attend one of them if I could.
Whether one's going to be in Raymond, one is going to be in Elma at the Extension Office, and the other is in Ocean Shores at the Galilean Church. The one in Raymond is at the PUD.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Jude,
Yeah.
we need to know if you're coming because we have kind of limitations on stuff. So, but you're welcome to come.
I won't use any of your materials, I promise. I'll let you know.
Okay. You could also listen to Jim via Zoom at home if you want to do that.
Oh, good.
Are you, to Jim, okay, but not
Yeah.
the whole day, okay.
Right. Not the
Thank
whole
you.
day.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Jude. That's for sure. Okay, this is the month and this is the week at which it's all happening here. I've got a couple slides. We're going to be talking about this. So I'm going to turn this over to Terry to talk about calendars and Terry and Robin and Rhonda to talk about this. I know I wanted to have the first slide here that Terry, I'll turn it over to you with a thank you for what I understand to be a very successful plant sale last Saturday.
Oh.
Terry, you want to pick it up?
Forgot to unmute. Yes, we had a great start to selling our planters out of the greenhouse where they all reside until they move to the Home and Garden Show. And Ocean Shores had a good sale as well at Garden by the Sea. So I really thank all the volunteers who helped with that. Plus we had members who brought family members and friends to buy. And I'm not sure about Ocean Shores, but at the greenhouse, everyone who saw them bought one. So, and one family bought 7.
Oh my God.
Their comment was that they had many mothers. So I didn't pursue that one, but anyway, it was a very successful sale.
Are there any left for the Home and Garden Show?
Oh, yes. We started with a total of 150. So we've got, what would that be? We've got 75 plus 3. We've got 78 left. Lots to sell. And they're really filling out and they're beautiful. So hopefully we'll sell them all so that we don't have to take them back to the greenhouse. Anyway, great start to the Home and Garden Show.
By the way, a thing I find exciting is that it's, with this kind of volume, this kind of sales volume, people are expecting it, they're finding it, they're finding their way here, right? They're at, they're expecting it, aren't they?
Yes, we have repeat customers that have enjoyed them in previous years and come back for another one. And these planters are the containers themselves are really nice and unique, and they're all made by Kelly. He spends his winters doing planter therapy. So we greatly appreciate the fact that he makes these because they are pretty attractive and special. So anyway, it was a good sale. And now we're on to the Home and Garden Show. We've had a great response from volunteers signing up to help. In fact, I heard from all of the trainees. Great response from the trainees and from our veteran members. So we should have lots of great help to not only set up, but also be there the weekend of the show. And the reason why it's so wonderful to have so many volunteers at the show is because that's frequently what we hear from people who come to the show and also our vendors, how nice all of our members are. And that's one of the things that they enjoy most about the show is that our members are friendly and helpful. And, you know, that Rhonda went to a home show in Lacey before, well, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that the vendors complained about was that there weren't any helpful managers of the show. So anyway, it makes our show unique, and it makes it why vendors like to come back to our show. And speaking of vendors, Robin could probably tell you a little bit about who's going to be there. We're almost full, which is pretty good for this year coming out of COVID.
Yeah, we were full at one point. And then we've had a few cancellations. I don't know. A lot of personal problems this year with vendors, you know, different. But so I still have a few booths open. If anybody knows of anybody last minute that wants to get in, send them my way, because I had a cancellation this morning. Nancy's Bakery. We're gonna miss her. Like, what will we do without cinnamon rolls, right? Anyway, do you guys want me to tell you some of the things that are there? I have so many new vendors, so many new ones. Like, I just a lot of garden accessories, which is always good for a garden show. You know, people who make metal things and bird baths, and I got African violets. That's all new. That's a lot of new creative things that people are making that we haven't had in the show before. Do have Bayview, which is nice. Let's see, Ironworks. Both my birdhouse people canceled out though. So if anybody knows of anybody who makes birdhouses, we could sure use some. I've actually had people say to me, I want to come to the garden show and buy a birdhouse, and I have no birdhouse vendors. So crap, somebody's calling me. I hope it's not somebody that's been, hope it's not a vendor. I have to answer the phone. Hang on. Carry on without me for a minute.
Very good. So by the way, a big thank you, it goes out to Robin and Rhonda for recruiting all these vendors and signing these vendors up. This is by the way, as we've mentioned before, this is a major economic development event for Grace Harbor County. So this is why we get grant money for them. And this is why this is why the fairgrounds are so eager to host us for this event. So it's a big deal. And I hope that everybody who's listening and everybody who's is making plans to participate, as appropriately. Terry, do you want to give any thoughts in terms of, what kind of times and what kind of needs you want and support you help for the setup and for the show itself? Any comments on that?
We have 2 setup days, and the Thursday setup day is primarily to get the arena set up, which is where we have our Master Gardener booths, our children's booth, our refreshment booth, and our Master Gardener store and plant clinic. So volunteers should come after 12 noon if you can help. And a lot of what happens that afternoon is setting up the curtains in the arena area. It's a big job, so lots of hands make it go fast. And we get going on all of our booths. Then Friday, the vendors start coming early. They come all day. They start about 7:30 in the morning, and so there's a lot going on. I will have free coffee and snacks for volunteers and any vendors that come and help on Friday. And it's just kind of fun to watch the show all come together. On Friday, there's we complete putting our stuff together, and then we also put up posters and do a little bit of decorating and just generally try and finish things up for the beginning of the show on Saturday and Sunday. If you are a door greeter, it's a good idea to show up for your shift 5 or 10 minutes early, because it's important that we cover all the doors. We hand out cards, welcome cards, that have our presentation schedule, and then they have a way to enter to win a $100 door prize. And from that we get our geographic information that we need to give to the Grace Harbor Tourism Association to get our grant money. So it's an important job that we get a bunch of those cards back, so we can kind of see where people are coming from and include it in our report to get our grant money. And the grant pays for things like advertising and all of our printing for posters, our fees for our presenters, and we have Dr. Linda Chalkers-Scott, have I got her name right? Who's going to be kind of an interesting speaker. She's a WSU former involved with Master Gardeners. And so she's speaking on Saturday. On Sunday, we have Mary Ann Benetti, who always has a really entertaining, fun presentation. So think about coming to and going to one of those or both of them or some of the other presentations. And then encourage your friends and family to come to the show and see a presentation or two and check out the show, because I think it's going to be a really, really fun, interesting show this year.
And don't the trainees and people get an hour of education for going to a seminar? Do they?
Yes. Well, yes, anybody. And
Yeah,
any of our
anybody.
members get
Right.
continuing education time for attending one of our presentations.
Awesome.
So it's very important, as Terry's mentioning here, if you know of a fellow Master Gardener, one of our colleagues who's not at this meeting here and is not hearing what Terry and Robin are giving us an update with, do reach out to them to make sure that everyone knows, right, the days and times that we need support in helping to get the setup and to helping to execute the show. It's a big deal, and this is an all hands on deck program that very much requires all of our support to make a success. Cindy, you had your hand up. Is there a comment, question?
Comment that I just wanted to share, because Terry was talking about the way vendors appreciate the Master Gardeners. That also extends to the fairgrounds folks that they've told me repeatedly that this event is their favorite event that happens in the fairgrounds over the course of the year. So just thought you guys should know that, because you put so much effort into what you do. So it's appreciated by the people that also host it via the facility.
Almost every vendor says that to me. Of all the shows we go to, this is our very favorite.
So this is the fairgrounds saying it to you as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool that we rate higher than the horse shows.
Or the dog show.
Dog shows, yeah. The dog shows, yeah.
Anyone,
Terry,
go ahead.
Terry, I wanted to make a comment. I'm often on the door greeting, which I do dearly love. It's just great to do. The first year I was put on various doors, which makes it really difficult to appear at the next place quicker than the then you're relieved from the last place. So I just want to say that it, in subsequent years, I have been on the same door the whole time, and that works a lot better
Okay.
than being
Good
moved
to
from
know.
door to door.
That's good to know. We have scheduled 3 greeters on the main door, which is referred to as the west door, and we have 2 on the east door. So hopefully that kind of covers any little time lapses of people getting to their greeter assignments.
Yeah. It just was very difficult the first year. Hasn't
Well,
been since then.
That's a really good comment, and we'll take another look at the schedule.
Okay. Sorry to make that comment so close to the event.
It's okay. We roll with the punches.
You do.
Barbara put
I
a
have
question in the,
question.
yeah, Barbara put a question in the chat regarding any plant vendors that coming this year. Robin, do you have any response?
Yeah, we have, let's see, 3. I can't think of her name, her Tapestry Gardens. And then we have, of course, the Peony Girl, Joni's Peonies, and I have African Violets. I have a couple people bringing indoor plants this time, which I haven't had before. So, yeah.
Okay. And Kathleen, you had a question.
Oh, I don't.
Oh,
I have a question. Cindy
Please.
Crosby has a question.
Please speak out. Yeah.
Okay, what time are we supposed to show up on Thursday for setup then?
Noon.
12 o'clock.
Noon on Thursday.
Noon on Thursday.
Yes.
I have got a whole tray of 18 monster sunflowers planted in 3-inch pots. I wanted to donate to the children's area. Is that okay?
It sounds great. Elizabeth and Jessica are organizing the children's area, but I'm sure they would love them.
Okay. And then I've got some house plants that I planted to donate. Should I do that too?
Well, by all means, bring them and we'll figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, everyone remember to bring their cookies, right? We're still the cookies. And this is, remember, every year it's a contest, right? To see if we can break that $1,000 barrier for cookie sales. And we've come very close, very close.
This year, we especially need cookies since we don't have Nancy's Bakery. We're gonna.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Bob's Nuts is going to be there though.
Bob's freaking nuts.
Yeah, freaking nuts.
Okay, so everyone, if any other questions and so forth, feel free to reach out to Robin and Terry via email. And thanks in advance for everyone's contributions in terms of making things happen. Hey, reminders for the Thursday and the Friday setups, as for the Sunday teardowns. Bring gloves, bring sturdy shoes, right? This is truly an event that we want to make sure that everyone enjoys and deals with safely. Okay. Couple comments here from Karen and Sharon and Kathleen. And I know that the state conference is coming up at the end of September, and they're reaching out to look for raffle items.
Yes, this is Karen. We need 5 raffle items, and we've already had PJ's taking care of one from the winery. And Sharon Golightly is doing a bed and breakfast, her home. And so we need 3 more. So if anybody has anything, and this can be, in the past, we've had Margie's made us some jewelry. We've had paintings or framed prints, something that has some value that will help the foundation earn some money.
So questions or comments on that, reach out to Kathleen, Karen, or Sharon.
And I have a question for Karen. This is Kathleen. So what if we have more than 5 raffle donations? Would that be fine also?
That's fine. The money, we generated money last year from the donations that were made for the raffle. And the money that's earned comes back to us.
No, it doesn't, Sharon.
Not all of it, ma'am.
No, I mean, the raffle is for the foundation.
I know, but the portion that we donated from our items, part of it.
But that was an auction. That was a silent auction.
Well, this is an auction also, Karen.
Well, in
Well,
the past, the
let's-
raffle items the money goes to the state.
Yeah, so Kathleen, I think the question your answer is yes, more than 5 is fine. Bring it on.
Okay, great. And can I just mention that it's pre-registration time for the conference
That's right.
till the end of the month. So,
You get a reduced price.
right.
And so that,
Yeah.
again, there should be no excuse for it not making your continuing education hours this year, right? Because this
Right.
program is an outstanding program anyway, and
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to attend both in person and or via Zoom.
Yeah.
We also have planned a pre-conference tour for $55 for people that want to sign up to the Westport Winery. They've been very great to work with, and that's for the conference attendees.
So check out the website.
And
Reminder, of course, to get the hours added. Alina and Brenda, any comment here? Because I know it's really important that, especially as we get into these busy times, like these May events and all the volunteer events that we're dealing with, that we get these hours in, so that it's not some sort of frantic catch up at the end of the year to try to remember when and where and how we contributed. Alina and Brenda, any comments?
This is Elena. I just wanted to really thank the people that have contacted me, the members who said, this isn't working right for me or whatever. I'm now contacting people who haven't posted hours yet and helping them to get on Give Pulse. And after it takes 15 minutes and after they learn how to do it, they go, oh, this is not so hard. This is a lot easier than I thought it would be. So we're having more and more people log in their hours now that they know how to do it. So if you have any questions, please contact Brenda or I, because we can help you in almost no time at all. Thank you.
Quick shout out then for next month's training, next month's program at this meeting, which will be virtual. Katie Buckley will be joining us, and she leads the Pollinator Health Task Force for Washington State's Department of Agriculture. So it's a big deal. Katie, by the way, is just recovering from COVID. So she's happy to be back with us, and very much looking forward to talking with us, right? Because you can appreciate it. Any support we as master gardeners can give in talking to the public about what we can do to promote pollinators, it's a big deal. So that's June 12th. Looking forward to that. Okay, so at this point, I wanted to turn this over to PJ and the team to talk about the foundation bylaws and the work that you all have been undertaking since the beginning of this year, right? In terms of preparing for preparing for this. So a big thank you for it, for the work that you've already done, and and looking forward to this, to what you want to share here. So I have, PJ, just a heads up, right? I have all of the bylaws kind of section by section laid out in individual slides here. So I'll let you kick it. I'll let you kick it off, and I'll let you lead the discussion here. And then
you'll be like clicking through.
Exactly. Please, you just take it on.
Excellent. Well, I can't say enough thanks to not only the committee, but also to Gary Fredericks of Cowlitz County, who they had a bylaws expert in their foundation and had just finished their bylaws reviews. And that doesn't mean we took Cowlitz County and put them into Grays Harbor and Pacific County, because as Gary often said to all of us, you know, we are very different, and especially us with 2 counties. And the group stayed with it. As I said way back when, this is not fun and exciting work sometimes, because unless you're really into bylaws. And I've spent a good part of my career doing bylaws. And the companion piece that we don't have yet, but once we have the bylaws approved by everyone, we will then set to work on putting together what's called the policy and procedure little handbook. And it's not going to be big like some places, but it will sort of flesh out some sections of the bylaws that need explanation. You don't put everything in the bylaws. So for example, one of the pieces that you're all familiar with, or most of you are familiar with, is that we have officers and we have directors, and those all have position descriptions to them, and they need to be updated. And that will go in the procedures handbook. You will not see position descriptions in the bylaws. What you will see is what officers and directors we have. So the bylaws are the skinny and the framework that we live by, and we follow the state of Washington to assure compliance for a nonprofit. And then the policies and procedures will flesh out items. Like Margie sent me a page that's a piece of policy, not a bylaws piece, but a piece that will go in the sort of handbook that will be posted on what we do if one of our members is sick or suffers a catastrophic event. And we do have something in place, and that will also need to be reviewed eventually. Another piece that is being in development by Sharon Coolish-Bales and Renee Powell is some fine tuning of what people need to do. Once we've passed a budget, you know, we still have a lot of sort of even virtual paperwork going back and forth. There are ways that once somebody has had their budget given to them for the year, that they should be able to just get that stuff through, get the check they need or whatever they need for that. That will be in there once we fine tune that on how the fiscal piece goes. So there are pieces that we don't have right now. There are pieces that are floating around that we all have talked about, or some of the veterans have talked about, and were never really codified. And eventually they're going to sit in one of the 2 documents. So what you have before you, again, is a draft of the revised Master Gardener Foundation of Grays Harbor and Pacific Counties of Washington State. These are our bylaws. This talks about how we are supporting the Master Gardener program, which is separate and under WSU. Our foundation is not covered by Washington State University. We are part of the larger state foundation, which is different than the Tony Gwynn, Elena, and a Brenda piece. Not that they're not part of our foundation, but that is a different piece. And we exist to help them do the job to make sure we're supporting our communities and also keeping our Master Gardener group going with our trainings and the pieces that WSU requires and our volunteer hours. That's not in our foundation bylaws. That's under WSU. So as a newbie, a few years ago, you know, I was trying to tease all that out, but we have made an attempt, and the best thing about this committee was that we had veterans, we had all stages of the different training groups since probably about 2012. And that brought a whole bunch of information and questions and teasing out of our bylaws to bring them up to date to the best that we can do at this point. Once we get these approved, then it will be up to us to have it on the foundation agenda at some point, probably next January or February 2023, to review them. Will it take as long? Heck no, not unless somebody changes some of the Washington nonprofit regulations even more so. But we were not out of compliance, but we hadn't really reviewed our bylaws for a bit of time. So this brings us up to date. They're a movable force in that we review them every year, and we make what changes, or we find something that isn't working, that's what we'll change. But right now, this is what we have at this moment, and this is your chance, rest of the membership, to say, well, why was that there? Or I think it should really read something like this. So I will be listening, and the committee members that are on will be listening to anything that we need to edit out a bit. This is like wordsmithing a bit too. So the reason you don't have a slashed out copy of where we changed things and what we did is, one, PJ didn't have that capacity. But two, and probably more importantly, by the end of February, we knew that we were trying to get the structure better, and you would have had a dickens of a time trying to figure out what we had done if there were a bunch of slashes. Some of you would have really enjoyed that. It really would have been a little problematic. So if you have the old ones with you, use them. If not, we can, and you don't have a copy, we'll get you copies of where we are right now, and you can go back and forth. The number one thing that you're going to see right now on this first slide is we have changed to the term articles. We had sections before, but we have gone to the more standard term of articles to, I think, just standardize our bylaws. So this is the first section, Article 1, pretty straightforward, maybe. Name and location. The name of this organization shall be Master Gardener Foundation of Grays Harbor and Pacific Counties of Washington State. The locations and chief places of business shall be in Grays Harbor and Pacific Counties, Washington. Mailing address was a bit of a discussion, but we all agreed that the mailing address should be P.O. Box 3018, Elma, Washington. And that is the first section. We will certainly entertain any questions or comments right now.
And you just may want to clarify, of course, that P.O. Box 3818, that is the extension office, right, in Elma.
That is the extension office in Elma, not the dog barn. Any questions or comments? And please, again, if you have something and you're still thinking about it, because this is a lot to take in, ask us. We've been doing this since January. Please send it forward to any one of the committee or myself. So definition, this is Article 2. These are things that are required in bylaws, in case you wonder why the heck are you doing that. A foundation, the Master Gardener Foundation of Grays Harbor and Pacific County. That's who we are. Let's go to Article 3. The purposes of this organization are solely educational and charitable, in furtherance of the WSU Master Gardener Program in Grays Harbor and Pacific Counties, without the inclusion of any purpose or intention of carrying on any business, trade, avocation, or profession or profit. And the reason, folks, that I'm reading it, I know you can all read, is because this is called a first reading. No, we don't need to do this in June. We will only address things that have been changed, but I actually need to read this so that we can show that we have had a first reading. Are there any questions about Article 3 purposes? Let's keep going, Kelly. Thank you. Without limitation, this is still Article 3. As to the generality of the foregoing, the following purposes are specifically stated. A, to enhance and support the effort of the Washington State University Extension Master Gardener Program to provide education and information on horticulture to the citizens of Grays Harbor and Pacific counties. B, to raise funds to be used to support and enhance the Master Gardener Program in Grays Harbor and Pacific counties. If you've ever wondered where Kelly gets his opening comments at the beginning of our meetings every month, he reminds us what we are here for. And so this is the outline. He does it much more succinctly, but this is what we do as a foundation, and that is why it needs to be specified as clearly as it is. Thanks, Kelly. C, to facilitate an exchange of ideas and information between individuals of this foundation through periodic newsletters, thank you, John and Katie, seminars and educational programs. There's Cindy, there's Terry's work. You can start to see the folks that are coming together that we've had developing and running these things for us and to keep us going. D, to provide opportunities to further develop the foundation's members' horticultural knowledge and skills, as well as leadership and organizational skills. Again, why Kelly does such a great job of bringing us a speaker like next month's speaker to help those of us who are either interns or newbie master gardeners or in training, or those of us who are veterans, continue to enhance our horticultural knowledge and skills. E, to do what is necessary to accomplish the purposes above enumerated, provided that no part of the activities of the organization shall be for the purpose of carrying on propaganda or otherwise attempting to influence legislation for participating in or intervening in, including the publishing or distribution of statements, any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for public office, or for the gain of any private individual or member of the foundation. And F, to provide foundation programs and activities open to all without discrimination. Article 4, the membership. The membership of the foundation shall consist of all currently certified Grays Harbor and Pacific Counties Master Gardeners, current year Master Gardener interns, emeritus Master Gardeners in good standing who wish to be members of the foundation. B, each individual member shall be entitled to cast one vote at any election or on any subject at any regular or special meeting of the members. C, all applications for membership shall be on a form which will include the applicant's name, mailing address, telephone number, and email address. This is contact information. The application shall state that he or she agrees to support the goals and purposes of the foundation. It shall be signed by the applicant and it shall be submitted annually to the secretary of the foundation. That didn't say that, but secretary. The application form may be submitted in paper or electronic form, and submission of the form by the member electronically shall be deemed as signed by the member. The member is responsible for keeping the foundation apprised of his or her current contact information. In case of failure to keep his or her contact information current, the member shall not be entitled to any notice provided by these bylaws or otherwise. So we hope that as we get through this membership section, we are actually hoping in our bylaws, we meaning the committee, that the foundation will actually have its own list of foundation members. And they may look exactly like Elena and Brenda's list of master gardeners, or they may not. But we're trying to make sure that as a foundation, we should have our own list and with current contact information of our members that wish to be part of the Master Gardener Grays Harbor Pacific County Foundation. Any questions so far? So in D, any member may be removed from the membership of the foundation by a 2/3 vote of the general members at any regularly scheduled meeting, annual planning meeting, or special meeting of the membership called for that purpose for conduct deemed prejudicial to this foundation, provided that such member shall have first been served with written notice by certified mail of the just cause against him or her, and shall have been given the opportunity to produce witnesses, if any, and to be heard at the meeting at which the vote is taken. I don't know if we in our history have ever had something like this, but it is important to make sure that we have our bases covered in the unlikely event we have a member that we need to remove. And I hope that never happens, but it needed to be spelled out. E, voting members shall abstain from voting on any business that they would receive financial benefit. And F, this is new, everybody. We are asking that the membership consider that to be a member of the foundation, we have an annual dues for the foundation of $5. This is because most foundations do have a dues. We wanted it to be small and affordable, and to help assure that the people that are part of the foundation really want to be part of the foundation. And again, this also makes sure that we have a list of folks that really have chosen to be part of the foundation. Questions?
I have a question. I'm wondering, any master gardeners who are not members of the foundation, and how do they treat it in this?
Master gardeners need to designate that they wish to be part of the foundation, John.
That's right. We were told that
Right.
at the beginning.
Right.
And so there are master gardeners that aren't part of the foundation.
I don't know what that looks like right now, but I'm assuming that there are. We're trying to assure that we actually know who has decided to be part of the foundation. I believe, and Elena can correct me, or Elizabeth, that originally we had a do you want to be part of the foundation on the Master Gardener form each year. That really should be separate, because we're not, even though we're Master Gardeners, we're not under WSU. That's their membership, or that's their enrollment of their bank of Master Gardeners. We want to make sure that people are actually designating to be part of the foundation. We're just want you to know that the group is also comfortable with not charging an annual dues, because this would go to the treasurers. This would increase their duties, so to speak. But we are trying to make sure that at the end of 2022, that we actually have a list of people that have designated to be part of the Master Gardeners.
PJ,
Yes. know.
will you, because I came in without going to classes here in Grace Harbor County, will you be sending out forms for us to register to be a foundation member and pay our dues this year, or will that be something you do at the first of 2023?
Val, I'm not sure that we have the answer to that yet. My suspicion is that we'd like to get the bylaws through and passed in June, and that Sharon and Lori Biddle and Kathy Echo and Kelly, all of us on the membership can talk about, so when are we going to do this? Because this will add a piece to the secretary's role of the foundation. Prior to this, it has been a rather, I don't want to say confusing, but it's been tied very closely to, I'm recommitting to be a master gardener. In reality, we need folks to definitely recommit to be master gardeners, but we shouldn't be asking Brenda and Elena to keep our members' roles for us. So
Exactly.
this is what this section is
exactly
about.
my point. Right. So I'm glad you're going through this process.
And also, Val, just because you didn't take those classes with us organizations, and you will have the same opportunity as anyone else to say, yes, I want to be part of the foundation, which we hope everyone will still do that, because it's an integral part of how we support the Master Gardener program as a whole.
Absolutely. And I was very surprised when I went to my first meeting or the first vote, that I wasn't required to be an official member of the foundation. So I'm glad that's all being straightened out and written in.
Thank you. There was a lot of conversation about this section.
So that's about $60 a year that you need to fork out.
I'm not following you, John. That's $5 a year.
And annual dues is $5. Okay, I thought it was monthly.
No.
No.
It's annual.
No, it's annual. Good grief, no.
Okay, thank you. That cleared it up.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, that we thought, John, we could make it bi-weekly. We could just tell you, it's every other week we want monies from you, John. We weren't going to, it's a special John Coogan clause they wanted to put in.
We haven't done that yet, Kelly. We haven't put that footnote in yet.
Well, that'd be a good way to get rid of somebody. Say, their dues are now monthly.
We'll get it added. We'll get it added.
$5 a year.
Besides, your treasurer would probably resign.
At least. Okay.
Yeah, she would.
About that, I know all of you probably have different and varying opinions about that. Put your foundation hat on when you're thinking of these opinions and sending us comments. We started at $10, backed it to $3, and settled on $5 as a nominal annual foundation membership. And I am here to say, having been part of a lot of foundations, that not only was I expected to contribute some money, and I'm not saying that we need to do all the things PJ's been on, but also the officers were expected to give a certain amount every year to enhance the coffers, so to speak, for whatever that foundation did. So I'm glad I was never part of Tesla or something like that, because I can't even imagine what they would ask for. But it is $5 a year if you wish to be part of the foundation. And if you have heartburn about this, or you like to support it, please let anyone on the committee know. We're not wedded to it. We're just trying to come up with a good, clear way to keep the foundation members and the foundation's organizational ability to keep our own membership together, and that may actually absolutely reflect the master gardener list. But right now, we need to make sure that everybody that wants to be a member of the foundation is, and just as Kelly does every time, make sure they also understand that being a master gardener does not require you to be a member of the foundation, although we certainly welcome everyone. So we're in Article 5, officers. And again, as I said to you, do not look for job descriptions, position postings. That's yet to come. This just lets anyone who comes into our organization and asks what officers we have and how we do it. This is the list. The other piece that I believe had been in conversation over the years, and Kelly probably knows this way better than I do, is the old term, I believe, especially for the Pacific County and North Beach position, was vice president. And I believe there was conversation, but it never got codified, that we move all the names of the folks. The Pacific County vice president was now the director of Pacific County, and the directors of public outreach and education, that we have a sort of a company of directors rather than changing different names. And we have one vice president for the foundation. So here it goes. The elected officers of the foundation shall be the president-elect, the vice president, the director of Pacific County, the secretary, the treasurer, the director of North Beach, the directors of public outreach, director of program support, director of education, director of public events, and the 3 representatives to the Master Gardener Foundation of Washington State. The duties of the president, president-elect, vice president, secretary, and treasurer shall be such as are usually imposed upon such officials, and as are required by law, such as may be assigned to them respectively by the members.
And Cindy, I see you've raised your hand. You have a question?
Yes, actually, it's a comment about the directorships for Pacific County and for North Beach. I believe we need to add one more for Grays Harbor County or Greater Grays Harbor County, because at this point, we are not all of us represented in the same way. So that would make, that would give us all our different geographic areas the same kind of representation on the board.
And PJ, what Cindy's referring to is indeed it's a historical, nuance of this, and that the original vice presidency roles, right, were Pacific County, North Beach, and a vice president for Grays Harbor County. And it just kind of, as we evolved, rather sloppily here, right, we just kind of ended up with a vice president for the foundation. And to Cindy's point, the greater Grays Harbor County is kind of being left in that without a particular director. However, it's up for debate in terms of whether that's a useful, it's a useful point.
No, I think that's great. I've always wondered, but I didn't find that in the 2012 bylaws.
Yep, Kelly, I'm not sure when that changed, because we've never had, in the time that I've been a master gardener, a director or a vice president for Grays Harbor County.
Yeah, this goes way back,
Okay.
But it's a question of whether it's needed or not. Yes, it could be an interesting strategy here to go to a president-elect, and then just have a director for Grays Harbor, eliminate the vice president position from the foundation and go to a director of Grays, 3 directors for the major geographies.
Do that, I suppose.
Yeah. But PJ, this could be I don't want to get into a rabbit hole on this subject here. This could be interesting. Yeah.
So everyone should think about that, and please send us what you think the wording should be, because again, what we'll then ask you, if this ends up in there, and I'm fine with it, we will then, when we get to the policy and procedure section, ask, who or how that comes about and who the organizational point person is or group is that meets, or however they want to describe that piece for the greater Grays Harbor County. And that's fine with me, but we will then for the other piece that we don't have yet, we'll need to flesh that out if folks decide that's what they want to do. And I'm happy to add that piece. But let's think about it. And
let me just add a little more though, PJ, on this, just to make sure we understand why this might be necessary, is that as the directorship for Pacific County or North Beach happens, as they were added in, that then took chunks of responsibilities away from certain, well, for instance, like John's position, he was over all demonstration gardens until this new directorships were set up. And then suddenly he only had one demonstration garden under his position as director. So that's another reason why I think we need a Grays Harbor County director. I don't think we need to lose the vice president's position. Kelly, I had no thoughts on that at all. I just am looking to make sure that a similar constructed hierarchy that fits into our foundation.
I think there's good merit in that, Cindy. I do. I think there's good merit, especially as we start thinking about these satellite clusters and satellite meetings that we've been talking about here with with the new Zoom enabled equipment.
Right.
Agreed. Sounds like a great idea. That's easy to do.
I would like to raise my hand. Sabine.
Go, Sabine.
Yes, what I have always been wondering is, and as I'm looking at this, and Cindy mentions the director of Grays Harbor, it is the foundation for Grays Harbor and Pacific County.
That's true.
So I'm not sure why we have a North Beach director, because that is part of Grays Harbor. So if we drop anything, it seems to me it makes more sense to go by what Cindy said, Grays Harbor County Director, Pacific County Director, and not have a North Beach Director, because that is part of Grays Harbor.
Just a quick question then, if we have directors of each of the regions, do we then need outreach, program support, education, et cetera, that would be covering all the groups? Because right now, essentially, as Cindy said, the demo gardens are handled locally. So maybe the other activities tend to be handled locally also. Just a question.
Well,
Jude,
I might.
Yeah, Jude, do you have a comment there?
Sorry.
Yeah, as to Sharon's last comment, before the vice presidents for Ocean Shores and South Pacific County, the directors were directors for all of the organization. And it is only when those positions were put in as a director, vice president, or director for Ocean Shores or for Pacific County that these duties of the directors shifted without any official, as far as I know, any official action on the part of the board. And perhaps that should be addressed as well. It has created quite a bit of problems. And also duplication of perhaps efforts that didn't need to be duplicated, but it's something that should be considered because it occurred spontaneously, organically, without decision of the board. And that should be looked at.
Okay.
I haven't noted you.
Chris, you have your hand up.
I'm just wondering if part of the issue here is that there are things that happen that belong more to all master gardeners than that belong specifically to the foundation. And is that where this has been muddy and continues to be muddy? You know, we're in the middle of the bylaws, so there may be much more clarification coming along that would separate stuff that belongs to WSU Master Gardeners from stuff that belongs to the foundation. But maybe part of it is to forge ahead with bylaws and then have folks look at other foundations to see where they have more split those things.
Well, Chris, this is PJ. There was some conversation about this because one of the reasons that I was interested in forging ahead is there was floating around, as there often is, people saying, well, this is what we do, or this is what we have. And sometimes it was a mixture of the Master Gardener side and the foundation. Sometimes it's something that had never made it into the bylaws or had never changed. Remember, we're about 8 to 10 years out on a review of our bylaws. And I feel that when we get to the policies and procedures, we really do have to tease out and have a hard conversation about the director positions. I didn't know about how they had ever split or how it showed up or how it had impinged on the duties of the current John Coogan's position. Those are all coming. This is our, I have to say, a real strong attempt to separate the foundation as much as we can right now from the Master Gardener piece, and to give, and I'm sure the board and the membership of the foundation, a lot to talk about where and how we want this to go. So I really appreciate what Cindy said and Jude said and John and everyone, and you too, Chris, that yes, this is to come. This is our attempt to really make sure as much as possible our wording actually reflects us as a foundation, and understanding that we exist because we have a Grays Harbor and Pacific County Master Gardener group. They can exist without us. Probably be hard, but they can exist without us. We don't have to exist, but it's in a very important piece, especially for our two counties. And we had hard conversations about that because working with Gary Fredericks of Cowlitz, they're not a combined county, although at one point someone talked about adding another county to Cowlitz, and Gary would have more information about that if you're interested. So he was not necessarily guiding, but listening to all of our comments and then bringing us back to where we should be looking at least at this first run as a foundation.
Okay, Jude, you had your hand up?
Yeah, very interesting comment about maybe Cowlitz adding something, being added something. Just like to say, historically, these two counties we're talking about, Pacific and Grays Harbor, were originally one county. It was called Chehalis County. So things do change with time. But in talking about the procedures are coming down the pike, I wonder if it would not be very wise if we considered the two at the same time before we make a final decision on either of those documents, because one can affect the other. I think that Cindy's suggestion is, from what I'm thinking right now, really a good idea, that there be a director, vice president, whatever it will be called, for Greater Grays Harbor. but there might be changes to the bylaws that would affect some other things in the next document to come that could affect what we want to have in the bylaws. So I would really like to see, if possible, that neither of them be approved until we have both of them before us to approve. I guess that's a motion, if I can make a motion.
Well, we're just in a, at this point, of course,
We're in
we're
a
just in a
discussion.
reading.
I withdraw the motion.
Yeah.
Let's discuss it.
Yeah. PJ, what I recommend at this point, this is because this is we probably just need more work on this in terms of how you want to do this. At the I definitely just as a quick aside, from a Pacific County standpoint, is that we don't operate operationally as a we've kind of gotten out of form in terms of having countywide meetings and so forth. We have demo gardens, demo beds, and demo activities and so forth, but all of that frankly could fit under the Committee of Program Support. So there's actually no with respect to representation on the board from these different geographies. I think this is something we can it's going to have to be worked out in additional meetings here. Okay. PJ, I'm going to go on. Okay. Yo, PJ.
I wonder if she's lost her connection. It happens there.
Would be quite unfortunate. Sabine, you want to pick up from PJ at this point until she's able to rejoin?
Okay, we are now at the bylaws, paragraph B. Are you back, PJ? Okay. The duties
Sorry
of
about that. Somebody appears to have hit a pole down the street, so I just lost power. My apologies. Okay, where are we?
Sabine, why don't you pick it up until PJ is able to establish here. You're just reading. This is now that we've established what the officers are. These next clauses speak to duties.
It's paragraph B. The duties of the directors are to assist the president in overseeing the work of committees. The state foundation representatives shall provide liaison between the foundation and the Master Gardener Foundation of Washington State. C, no foundation member shall hold more than one elected office at a time. A foundation member may concurrently hold an elected office and appointed officers. Any questions on that or discussions?
Just a quick item on item C here is it seems redundant. The second sentence seems in conflict with sentence 1 here, right? I mean, I guess I see an elected office and an appointed office. So you can be appointed, I suppose. This is,
right
between elections or something. That's the idea?
Right.
That's what it means.
Right,
Okay.
that's what it means.
Okay.
I agree, Kelly, but that's what it means.
Okay.
PJ, are you back on?
I am.
Okay, so I hand it back to you.
Thank you, Sabine.
Thank you, PJ.
The membership of the foundation shall also consist of other interested persons who wish to be associate members of the foundation. Associate members may not provide educational recommendations, which are specific to the WSU Master Gardener program. An associate member will be entitled to all privileges to membership except voting, making motions, and holding office. So this is a new piece, folks. Most of the other foundations have this piece. You know that across the 2 counties, we have some wonderful vendors or businesses that have been very supportive of us. And we decided to float this by and to see if we could agree that this might be a nice thing to have in our bylaws in case we wanted to invite one of our business or academic supporters to be an associate member of the foundation. what that normally does is it helps us raise money. It's not that they come in with tons of money, but they may have an idea. They may enhance a program that we're already doing to raise money, or other pieces that I haven't thought about and the committee hasn't thought about yet. So we wanted to float this by and see if the Grace Harbor and Pacific County Foundation is ready yet to consider having associate members. That doesn't mean we have to, but people can bring that forward as something that we could consider.
Helen, you have your hand up.
Do associate members pay dues?
Yes. $5, not $5 a month.
A year.
Yes, they're $5 a year.
PJ?
Yes.
I was under the impression that associate members, they do not pay any fees because they are entitled to the privileges, but they cannot vote. For some reason, I seem to remember we don't ask associate members to pay the $5, but I could be wrong. Maybe I was dreaming it. I don't know.
Well, again, Sabine, and I may have spoken too quickly for the group, so you can all put this in your memory cells or on your notes, that this would be a piece that would be fleshed out in the policy and procedures about whether they are. And you're probably right, Sabine.
Yeah.
I probably
Okay. If
but
we
they
can
don't.
flesh it- Okay.
Right.
Cindy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was curious. I have a couple of questions. I think this is a good idea. I think it's a good idea, but I think part of what we need to clarify is exactly what Helen just brought up is, I don't think it's worth anybody's $5 to be part of this organization if all of the benefit is for us. So I'd like to understand a little bit about what is the benefit to the associate member, and I guess to me there's a lot of questions that surround this. It's a good idea, but for me there's just a lot of uncertainty about how it works and what benefit is there to the associate member.
I think the benefit would be for the person, Cindy. The fleshing out will come in the policy and procedures book, because I would like to, and I'm sure the committee, to talk to a couple of the counties that have had associate members. The other piece that will need to happen, as you've all are thinking or have spoken, that would have to be, so how do we nominate an associate member? How is that to proceed? We decided to put this in just to see if our foundation was ready to consider this. If we are, and we don't eliminate D, then we will have to flesh it out in the policy and procedures book.
Okay, thank you.
E, officers shall be elected for a term of 1 year or until their successors are elected and qualified. The president-elect shall succeed to the position of the president without a vote of the membership for a term of 1 year immediately following his or her 1-year term as president-elect. The representatives to the Master Gardner Foundation of Washington State shall serve a term of 2 years. Terms of office are from January 1st to December 31st. Article 6, Executive Board. The elected officers and directors of the foundation shall constitute the Executive Board. The immediate past president and Master Gardner coordinators shall be ex officio, non-voting members of the Executive Board. The Executive Board of the Foundation shall have all the powers and duties necessary to manage and administer the affairs of the Foundation. B, election of board members. Number 1, At the October members meeting, the foundation members shall elect from their members a president-elect, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer, the directors of public outreach, program support, education, public events, and state foundation representatives. 2, the director for Pacific County shall be as selected by the Pacific County Master Gardeners. 3, the director for North Beach shall be as elected by the North Beach Master Gardeners. And this, of course, would be the section that we would change as we take on this conversation to have a director of the greater Grays Harbor, or whether it is time for Grays Harbor to have one director, which would perhaps take in the North Beach area since we are in Grays Harbor. But that's a further conversation. And this particular section B, election of board members, along with the other section where Cindy pointed out what we used to have, are the pieces that will be something we'll be taking on, I imagine, this year, because I think they are very good pieces to take on and have somehow dropped away in our bylaws. C, any vice president, treasurer, secretary, or director may appoint a proxy for any executive board meeting. Notice that the president and the president-elect may not appoint a proxy. 1, a vice president, treasurer, secretary, and directors may select any Grays Harbor Pacific County's Master Gardener Foundation member in good standing as his/her proxy. 2, proxies shall be included in the count for a quorum for any executive board meeting. 3, a vice president, treasurer, secretary, and director may specify that his/her proxy is for a vote on any or all issues or for specific named issues. Kelly, have we ever had this come up where we've had proxies for votes?
Very often. Truly very often, you know, and it's very effective, obviously, just given our group here.
Four, written documentation of a proxy appointment must be filed with the secretary before the person authorized as a proxy may vote. The authorization shall specify if the proxy is for a specific issue or for any or all issues. 5, vice president, the treasurer, and secretary or directors executing a proxy shall specify therein the length of time it shall continue in force. No proxy shall be valid after 3 months from the date of its execution.
Jude, do you have your hand up?
Sort of very, go ahead.
Jude, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do have my hand up because I have a question or a comment on number 4. It might be a time when a written documentation, it would not be possible to have it before you need that proxy vote. It happened to me once when I was a board member. I was like 5 minutes before the board meeting, not able to attend the board meeting. And so I wonder if having that written documentation could be changed to simply notification to whoever the presiding officer is, would be considered as a possible substitute for that.
But again, that's very conventional, of course, to have written documentation to make sure that the proxy appointment is very intentional and is very considered. And that written documentation could be an email, Jude, right? So it could be an email and a text message, right?
Or a text message, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not at all sure if we're looking at how maybe meetings are held differently. I think it should be considered. In my case, that wouldn't have been possible. And
But in that case, that's an extraordinary circumstance, right, Jude? I mean, that
Right.
you were just that
Right.
you were just unable to make the, you know.
I would like for the committee to please consider that. Contrary, though, since the board almost always votes unanimously for something, maybe it doesn't really matter in any practical sense. But I do remember that my having to miss that one very important meeting.
Jude,
Consider.
this is PJ. Would you be willing to send me, you know, a few sentences about how you think that we could word that in that area to make sure to take care of an extraordinary situation also?
I will try, PJ.
Yeah, well, at the very least, Jude, it will certainly serve my sometimes leaky memory to remember.
All right.
And I think that extraordinary situations do come up. So I don't see any reason that we can't enhance that section with that. And the committee will take it to the committee, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank you.
D, in the case of any vacancy on the executive board shall elect or appoint a successor to hold office for the unexpired portion of the term of the officer whose place became vacant. Any officer may be removed by majority vote of the members at a duly called meeting whenever the best interests of the organization are served. E, all board members shall attend at least 6 board meetings annually or may be removed at the discretion of the executive board.
Just with respect to typos, we should capitalize executive board there in E.
Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. And that was F. The board shall have the powers and duties necessary to conduct the affairs of the foundation and shall perform such other duties as are specified in these bylaws, subject to the limitation of the foundation's articles of incorporation, the laws of the state of Washington, and the orders of the foundation as assigned. None of its acts shall conflict with actions taken by the foundation. G, the board may not invest portions of its assets in other than highly liquid funds and bank certificates of deposit without the approval of an investment policy allowing such investments by the board and the general members of the foundation.
So that eliminates our pork belly futures opportunities, right?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Oh.
H, the board shall have the power to acquire property for the foundation in accordance with the budgetary provisions of these bylaws. The board shall also have the power to sell or dispose of the whole or any part of the property, either real or personal, that the foundation may own. Sales or disposals of foundation property valued in excess of $1,000 require the approval of the general members of the foundation.
Now, an interesting point, this is meant to include real property as opposed to capital assets. For example, each of the owls we just purchased was about $1,000, you know, so you'd hate to see, you know, I would hate to have that be a general membership vote.
Right. So are you suggesting, Kelly, that we raise that amount?
Well, I just think if the question is real property, i.e., you know, a physical titled deeded property, right?
Right.
versus an asset, a capital asset of some sort.
Mhm.
We have a couple comments though on this thing. Val, you have a comment on this? Val, you're on mute if you're making a comment here.
Real property would be considered a building. Personal property is everything else, like equipment and materials is a different situation, but it's a building or it's equipment. Do we own any buildings?
So PJ, what was the
Yeah.
intention? What was the intention of this section here?
This is in a section that is similar to Cowlitz County's section in order to make sure that we understood what we could dispose of and what a money amount was. So if I remember correctly, and I may not remember correctly, there have been some new additions to the Washington State nonprofit guidelines, laws, what we're supposed to do. And this just seemed like a piece that we should have in there in case we were ever talking about real or personal property. Sharon, do you have anything to add to that? Sharon Coolidge.
I'm thinking, $1,000. I'm just thinking back another situation when computers were easily more than $1,000. They ended up being on the books for a long time. They were really worth nothing at the point, but we weren't able to dispose of them readily because they still had value. And you could buy a new one for $500 or $600. So this is one of the issues here that I can see is we might have something that we have on our books, and the owls are really a good example of that 5 years from now are replaced, and we don't depreciate these items. So I don't know how we should handle this. But maybe we just need to raise the amount of that level, making it maybe 5,000 rather than 1,000. We do have some real property in that we have the building on the fairgrounds.
I'm actually curious also from the standpoint of the committee in terms of why it's only the sale or the disposal of property as opposed to the purchase or acquisition of property, so that the foundation can obviously acquire property without any restrictions based upon board decisions. But they can only dispose of property without general membership.
Good point.
On one thing that Sharon said, I'm not sure is accurate. I believe that when we put things on the demonstration garden, like that new blue office building in the demonstration garden in Elma, that it becomes the property of the fairgrounds.
You are right.
Yeah,
you are right.
So we don't have any property, but also to PJ's comment about some changes in nonprofit laws. I'm on the board of a local Audubon society, and that is true, and it affects us pretty greatly. So to keep it in would not be a problem since we don't have any property, right? But if we ever get any property, we might want to revisit this particular part of the bylaws.
Makes sense.
And if it gives people heartburn or something, please send us a note. This is something that can be tweaked for sure to be specific to Grays Harbor, Pacific County. But right now, I don't think, as Jude explained that, and as Val also brought up, that we have anything to be concerned about, but that's there in case we ever do in the future. So no board member shall derive any personal profit or gain directly or indirectly by reason of his or her participation with the foundation. Each individual shall disclose to the foundation any personal interest which they may have in any matter pending before the foundation, and shall refrain from participation in any decision on such a matter. It shall have the power to acquire other property on behalf of the foundation without consultation. The board by resolution entered in its minutes may classify portions of its assets as held for investment, endowment, or annuity purposes. Where so classified, such assets may be utilized in such manner as the executive board deems in the best interest of the foundation.
So PJ, the first two questions, the first two sentences, right, refer to individuals. And then you start off the third sentence with, it shall have the power. Is there some, I think something's got fuddled up here.
Yeah, we'll go back and look at that.
Okay, I'm moving on.
Yeah, it is. Well, we'll go back and look at that. Got it. Not that we're into these heavy transactions yet, but we better have it clarity in case we decide to get something big. J, the executive board may accept any contribution, gift, bequest, or device for the general purposes or any special purpose of the foundation. K, the executive board shall have power and authority to receive and administer funds and other assets, to serve in an advisory capacity to the Washington State University Extension Master Gardener Program, and to encourage interest in the Master Gardener Program of Grace Harbor and Pacific Counties. L, the executive board will attend a retreat to plan and adopt the annual budget for the following year by a majority vote of the board. Of course, COVID sort of did something with that, but it's in there. Article 7, meetings of members. A, general meetings of the foundation membership shall be held as determined by the board, including the annual meeting. B, the annual meeting of the members of the foundation shall be held during the month of October at a time and place established by the executive board, and it shall be the duty of the secretary to give 30 days notification to all members of the annual meeting. Any business for the good of the foundation may be conducted at the annual planning meeting, including the election of board members as set forth in these bylaws. C, special meetings of the board or the foundation may be called by a majority of the board. Written notice of a special meeting shall be mailed or emailed to all members at least 7 days prior to the date fixed for such a meeting. No business shall be transacted at any special meeting except such as is specified in the notice calling such a meeting. That's pretty standard board public notice language. D, meetings shall be held and attended in person whenever possible. When determined to be in the foundation's best interest, the board may approve virtual meetings, phone, video conference, etc., or virtual attendance of physical meetings. Members attending by phone, video conference, or other virtual means shall have the same rights and responsibilities as those attending in person. E, at any meeting of the members of the foundation or the board, a majority of board members must be present, either physically or virtually, to constitute a quorum to conduct business. A majority of the votes of a quorum of the board shall be sufficient to pass any measure coming before the board. A majority of the votes by general members in attendance shall be sufficient to pass any matter coming before the foundation. F, telephone and email voting is permissible as prescribed below. 1, the executive board or any committee designated by the executive board may participate in a meeting by a conference call so long as all participants can hear each other at the same time. A conference call shall constitute presence in person. No other vote by telephone is permissible under RCW 24.03.120. No proxy vote shall be allowed in the case of a telephone vote. 2, a proposal may be approved by email by the executive board only by unanimous consent. Again, RCW 24.03.465. The president may conduct such a vote without a meeting of the executive board. The president's email must provide sufficient information for board members to fully consider the proposal. Emails from the executive board to the president voicing consent or objection to a proposal from the president must contain the executive board member's full name so the president can accurately determine each board member's identity, as well as their consent or dissent. Members voting by email are present for all purposes of quorum, count of votes, and percentages of total voting power present. If unanimous consent for a proposal is not obtained, the proposal shall be scheduled for a vote at the next regular or special executive board meeting. G, regular meetings of the executive board shall be held at such times and places as the board by resolution shall appoint. Special meetings may be called by the president or a majority of the board by giving 10 days notice to each board member. H, the executive board shall keep minutes and records of all its proceedings. These records shall be available for the members. I, a director shall have no liability to the foundation for monetary damages for conduct as a director, except for acts or omissions that involve intentional misconduct by the director or a knowing violation of law by a director, where the director votes or assents to a distribution which is unlawful or violates the requirements of these bylaws, or for any transaction from which the director will personally receive a benefit in money, property, or services to which the director is not legally entitled. If the Washington Nonprofit Corporation Act is hereafter amended to authorize corporate action further eliminating or limiting the personal liability of directors, then the liability of a director shall be eliminated or limited to the full extent permitted by the Washington Nonprofit Corporation Act, as so amended. Any repeal or modification of this section shall not adversely affect any right or protection of a director of the foundation existing at the time of such repeal or modification for or with respect to an act or omission of such director occurring prior to such repeal or modification. This was not our language, in case you didn't figure that out. This is one of the newer pieces that had to be fleshed out. J, each person who was or is threatened to be made a party to or is otherwise involved in any actual or threatened action, suit, or proceeding by reason of the fact that he or she is or was a director of the foundation shall be indemnified and held harmless by the foundation to the full extent permitted by applicable law as then in effect against all expense, liability, and loss actually and reasonably incurred or suffered by such person in connection therewith. So I think this brings out the point of, Kelly, if I'm not correct, we don't have insurance that protects the executive board or directors. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do not have directors or officers insurance.
Has that been discussed before?
Yes, it has been, you know, and the whole focus there is that directors and officers insurance is primarily intended for organizations that have employees, because sexual harassment or employee harassment at employment is like 99% of all the charges that are ever brought against directors on behalf of the, and so because we have no employees, and only offer honorariums to our coordinators, it's been judged historically not necessary for us to have D&O insurance for the directors. This is open for consideration. We certainly can revisit this. I mean, these are strong statements you're making in these proposed bylaws, right, to indemnify and hold harmless all these individuals, and the ability to do so by the foundation. It's you'd hate to see us having to hire lawyers at $250 an hour, right, to enact on this. On the other hand, well, this is deserving of discussion, right, at the board level.
Right. And part of it is where the Washington nonprofit statutes are taking us, but that doesn't, that we put it in because that's where it's going. And then it's good conversation for us to have. And it's also easy for us to remove too, because this is not our language. This is language that was presented to us.
Mm-hmm.
Article 8, committees. A, the foundation board shall determine such necessary standing and ad hoc committees as are necessary to conduct business and assign committees to appropriate directorships. The director shall appoint the committee chairs. Article 9, finances. A, the fiscal year shall be from January 1st through December 31st. B, funds may be solicited for purposes approved by the executive board. C, a bequest program may be operated as an integral part of the activities of the foundation. Its purpose shall be to stimulate and solicit gifts under wills, life insurance, state pledges, annuity contracts, transfer of property, or trust funds, and in such other and similar manners as the executive board shall deem appropriate. D, contributions to the foundation may be received for either regular or special needs or both, and may be received and dispersed immediately or over a period of time, or may be used for creation of or addition to a capital fund from which only the interest may be dispersed. Any such capital fund or funds may be continued for a designated or limited period or in perpetuity. Contributions received without a designated purpose are to be used as the executive board shall prescribe. E, all contributions are to be deposited with the treasurer, and all contributions to and disbursements from the foundation shall be recorded by the treasurer. F, expenses for an accounting year shall not exceed funds available to pay them that year. G, the executive board shall, prior to the end of each fiscal year, prepare an itemized statement of the proposed operating expenses and budget for all proposed receipts and disbursements for the following accounting year. H, an audit report of the finances of the foundation shall be made annually by the Audit Committee at the end of each fiscal year and at such other times, if any, as the board shall direct. The Audit Committee shall be appointed by the executive board. I, the treasurer shall prepare a statement of foundation income and expenses at the conclusion of the fiscal year. A copy of the statement shall be submitted to the executive board and shall be available for the members.
And just quick comment here, Val, and Val has a comment here, but a quick comment I have is that this references the Audit Committee. And if we notice that just in the prior couple things here, we talked about just committees are going to be, there was my point being, should we call out the Audit Committee as a committee we absolutely want to have, or is this just meant to be an ad hoc committee formed annually?
My comment would be, is there any special expertise of the members of the audit committee, for instance, certified public accountants who perform audits?
You know, Val and Sharon probably could speak, or Kelly could speak better. This was an area that I had asked about, whether we had an audit committee, whether I should have called for an audit committee. It doesn't define expertise. And Sharon, I'm not sure that we've had an audit committee in past years, but you can speak to that better than I can.
We have not had one for several years. I think the last audit was basically done when we changed treasurers. My suggestion really is we do need to have an annual audit. Val, are you a CPA? Do you have a CPA?
I am. I was, but I'm not licensed by the state of Washington anymore. I'm in retirement. But I certainly think that anyone who is designated an audit committee should know how an audit works. Like, it's important not to have anybody involved in the daily administration of deposits and check writing to be involved at all, because obviously that audit is checking how those people have done their job and to assure the membership that it's all on the up and up. So that's my only point.
So PJ, I'd recommend that we would adjust the language in H to speak to the fact that, you know, as an audit will be conducted annually, right? You know, and it will be conducted, this audit will be conducted by independent and external and qualified individuals. And we don't make reference to a committee, and just make reference to the quality of the audit function that we want to achieve.
Or not use that precise language, because an audit by a professional certified public accountant firm is going to be very costly.
Very expensive.
So it could be considered, there are different levels now. It could be a review.
Okay.
So they would just look at past receipts and transactions and validate are all the checks deposited, endorsed properly, and all the money that comes in matches all the deposits to the bank statement. So a review would be a very less expensive process than a full-on audit.
So how much would,
in order to expedite the process, Val, do you, just our time here today, Val, do you just want to, perhaps you could propose some language to H, a revision to that point?
I could do that, because audits in relation to finances, those two words together have very specific meanings, which I have just kind of reiterated. So, you know, we could make it less casual. So I think it would be a discussion with what the members expect.
Sabine, you have your hand up?
Comment on audit committees, if I may. This is Karen. I've been on several. You do not have to be a certified public accountant. It would be nice to have that knowledge. Yes. But what you're doing basically is a check on the honesty of the whoever's in charge of the money.
Right. And if I may add to that, is I'm on church council. I'm the secretary on our church council, and we have the same situation. We need to have an audit of our treasurer, of our finances. And with us, we just ask the congregation, people who are not on the board, to help us with the audit. So they form a committee. They do not have to be qualified. And usually people who sign up for this committee are those who either have worked in finances or have at least an idea, but it is not done by an outside professional. And it's just what Karen said. It's really a check and an, on, you know, the honesty and that things are done the way they should be done. And just an overview, and not so much like an audit like the IRS would do.
Yeah.
Kelly, I can't seem to find my hand up thing, but this is Garnet. And I want to also comment that it's not just to check on the honesty of the people, but it's also to protect the people
Yeah.
Right.
that are
That's-
involved, so that
Absolutely.
something doesn't come up that is
Absolutely.
questionable.
Yes.
It could be an error, an honest error that someone may have made. So it's not even the honesty, it's just accuracy is maybe a better word.
Thank you, Garnet. That was a good point.
Sharon's hand is up, and so is mine.
Go ahead, Jude.
In an organization which maybe often have legal issues that I've been involved in the past, I'm not talking about master gardeners, but we usually get attorney help pro bono. And I'm wondering if CPAs ever do any pro bono work. Maybe there's somebody out there in one of the two counties or who would be willing to do that as a goodwill gesture to master gardeners, who would give it that authenticity that would protect us as well as the treasurer and so on. Because we all know that people have absconded with funds, and we have a lot of funds. Sharon could go to Tahiti and have a great time.
She could never come back to Grace Harbor County.
You're right.
Not with the rain. But that's a possibility for getting a professional advice, is to send a letter of request to several people that we know, perhaps.
Yeah, I think
It worked well for other organizations who needed attorney representation pretty often.
Yeah, I think after tax season, if you want a CPA sort of person.
After the tax season.
Yeah.
In the summer months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like August, September, there's not a whole lot going on. They might be amenable to a suggestion like that.
So PJ, just to expedite time for today, I might recommend that that the committee revise paragraph H there.
And Val, would you please send me a little wording, or we can talk about it when we see each other?
Yes, let's talk about it on Monday.
That sounds good.
Let me take a picture of that screen before you pass on.
There in the e-news, there's a link to the entire bylaws here. So there's nothing that.
Yeah, I have that.
Okay. H, moving on from H to I. The treasurer shall prepare a statement of foundation income and expenses at the conclusion of the fiscal year. A copy of the statement shall be submitted to the executive board and shall be available for the members. And I believe we have that. We are doing that. Article 10, Parliamentary Authority. Rules contained in the current edition of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised shall govern the foundation in all cases to which they are applicable and in which they are not inconsistent with the bylaws and other rules of order the foundation may adopt. Kelly's good at that. Article 11, Amendments. These bylaws may be altered, amended, or repealed, and new bylaws may be adopted by a majority of members present at a duly held general or special meeting, if at least 30 days notification is given to all members of the intention to alter, amend, or repeal, or to adopt new bylaws at such a meeting. Article 12. Upon dissolution of the foundation or the winding up of its affairs, the assets of the foundation shall be turned over to the WSU Master Gardener Program or to such nonprofit, scientific, or educational horticultural organizations as the board may select, which would qualify under the provisions of Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. And when we get to the point where we can amend these, we will have a date in there and everybody will see when we've gotten to that point.
Phew. So PJ, next steps with respect to that.
Next steps are that as I get some changes or thoughts, or as we do changes, I will get them changed, post them on to John so that we will have them for the June 14th meeting. And everyone, I don't want anyone to think that this is like, you know, we're just doing it. We can have a third reading. We can have a fourth reading. The idea is we've taken some time waiting to really do this kind of a real hard and heavy duty look at our bylaws, and everything won't be perfect, but we will not go forward until we can get everyone's thoughts and we're ready to go. Now, my committee will look at everyone's thoughts and we will have a conversation about whether we think that needs to change right now or whether it can wait. So you will not have to listen to PJ read this or the Declaration of Independence at the June 14th meeting, even though that's Flag Day. So I'm not adding anything new, but it will be upon each member to keep looking at the changes. And I will try to highlight them better as I can. Google's not really good at that piece.
PJ, again, I want to thank you and the committee for the work that you've put into this. I mean, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of legalese. There's a lot of, very formal language. It seems inconsistent with the casual and informal nature with which we often run our affairs. But so much of it is required, both legally and structurally. And of course, part of the responsibility of the bylaws is to make sure that we have a solid foundation that is objective and it is robust in case of situations in which Sharon Coolidge Bales does flit off to Tahiti, and that we can be resilient in such a situation.
She may take the owls too.
I will take the owls.
Okay, if anything else for the good of the order, otherwise I will conclude the foundation meeting and we can transition to the board meeting.
I have one.
Go ahead, Robin.
I just have one question. This is, I don't know if this is the proper place to do it, but I have, at this point, at least 20 potted up plants for the garden tour plant sale. And I'll probably have many more, but I have a problem. I have nowhere to store them. And I have a 130-pound puppy who, no matter where I seem to put them, she finds them and starts dragging them around the yard. I have to leave them outside, obviously.
So Barb, just to jump in though, isn't this going to be Barbara's? Can you help out here?
Is there anyone who could host these plants until this tour? While I still have any left? Like take them to their house and add them to theirs? I don't know. I just don't know where I'm going to put them.
I can do it, Robin.
Could you? Awesome.
How many did you say you had?
At this point, I have 20 pots. I'm sure I can get a lot more, but
I have a big concrete area where I could put them.
Do you have other plants that you're doing that you could keep them watered and everything?
Yes, I do.
Okay, awesome. I'll bring them to you along with something for the thingy you were mentioning earlier.
Anything else for the good of the order today?
I have a real quick good of the order because it's not Master Gardeners, but my husband's just been positive for COVID. I'm fine, but anyway, the thing that we learned that maybe all the rest of you know, but there is an antiviral that was authorized in December. You do need to, I see some head shaking. I'm glad to know people know it. That you have to start within 5 days of symptoms. It's free. And there's also an injectable. So it depends on a person's situation, but I've been telling some other people I know that are positive and they did not know about it. So I think we need to work at spreading the word around that it is available. And Ken is feeling better. He just has a mild cold. The only reason we tested was because it was Mother's Day and he had this cough and we were headed up to see family. And he was immediately positive.
So let's indeed spread the information and not spread the virus. Well stated.
Good, yes.
Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. So with that, we'll conclude the meeting.